Welcome to the channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at Silver Age comic books. So it's not a whole lot of DC titles, but the majority of this is going to be Marvel. So if you're into key issues, you may want to stick around and check this out. I want to show you this issue of Spider-Gwen #1. This is the Portatio variant. It's a fancy dancy comic book. We have it graded at a 9.6. This is actually a homage cover to Spider-Man #50. What makes this book important is whenever we reach 500 subscribers, we're going to do a giveaway. All you have to do is like, comment, and subscribe. You'll be entered into it. I will ship this to you for free. Once we get there, stay tuned. These books are going in no particular order at all. They just kind of got moved around and shuffled around. If it happens to be like within my top 10 or top 5, I'll definitely take a moment and tell you why I did this, so forth and so on. Avengers #1 came out in September of 1963. You know what this book is. It's the first appearance of the Avengers. You know, you've got the core Avengers. You've got Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then you also have Loki on the cover. This is just a 0.5 copy. The back cover is missing and the front cover is detached. Just another situation where low grade's better than no grade. I want to say I'm $350 in on this book, and as is, it's probably about an $800 to $900 copy. Up we have Thor #129. This book came out in June of 1966, and this is the first appearance of Ares. Now, he's not on the cover. You have an issue of Thor, have a whole battle going on with Zeus and Hercules. So if Ares had been on the cover, I think this book would be more sought after. This book is still relatively cheap, especially in this grade. It's a 7.5. You can get a mid-grade for still under $100. I think I'm like $50 in on this book, and I only got it 3 years ago. So you can still get it for cheap, but I have an appreciation for this book. I really like the character of Ares. He was really big in the Dark Avenger storyline, which if you're not familiar with that, Norman Osborn goes crazy and pretty much makes evil Avengers. So it's worth checking out. Here we have Tales to Astonish #27. It's the first appearance of Ant-Man, Henry Pym, not in costume. I'm not quite sure if that's him on the cover or not, but we'll just guess and say it is, because why not? So this is a 3.0. It's off-white pages, and my story with this book is I actually had this book raw. It came from my friend up in Michigan. He gave me a phone call one day and said, "Hey man, I'm at a flea market and they have Tales to Astonish 27, which we knew what that book was." And I was like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, what grade, what condition, what's the price?" You know, we go through that whole process. So we're $400. Next up, we have a DC book. We've got Detective Comics #298. This came out in December of 1961. This one came out to be a 3.5. This is the origin and first appearance of the Silver Age Clayface, or also the second Clayface, Matt Hagen. Now, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty positive that Clayface from the Batman animated series is based on this one. Like, they took his name, but then applied the original Clayface's origin to him. It's kind of weird, but it was like they merged the first and second Clayface, the Golden Age and Silver Age, together to create one. Next up, for a 2.0, this book presents very well. I'm surprised that it's at a 2.0. It looks like it would be a 5, if not higher. But we have Amazing Spider-Man issue #3, the first appearance of Doc Ock. This book is kind of high on spec right now because Doc Ock is supposed to be showing back up in the next Spider-Man movie. So whether that happens or not, we'll see. But irregardless, let me rephrase it. Regardless, I'm happy to have this. If you watched me and Dustin's video where we had a $8,000 CGC unboxing, you've already seen this book. But we have Journey into Mystery #85. This is the third appearance of Thor, but it's also the first appearance of Loki. It has other cameo appearances, but this is known for being the first appearance of Loki. This is in a 3.5. So this book is on fire in every way imaginable. I've already done a video unboxing this and advising for anyone that's interested to stay away from this book at the moment. And it's Silver Surfer #3, the first appearance of Mephisto at a 7.0 grade. This book in particular could definitely benefit from a clean and press. With a press, it would probably bump up, depend on that grader's day, anywhere from between an 8 to a 9. That part's out of my control. It's just going to depend on that grader. This book is in my top 10. So I got this book last year when I started taking my collection a little bit more seriously with the grades that I wanted to invest in. And I've got Thor number 165. This is the first full appearance of Warlock. Now the cover is a very glossy black, which is harder to get a higher grade with. So it presents super well. It's beautiful. I just don't find myself caring about this book as much as I thought I would have. Definitely available for sale or trade. Just reach out and message me and we'll negotiate. This is another book that I had raw that I ended up submitting to get graded earlier on in my comic career. Amazing Spider-Man number 15. This is the first appearance of Kraven. I love this cover. I'm not crazy about how Spider-Man's drawn. To me, something's not proportional about him. But I love the purple background and Kraven jumping out after him. Next up, this book I got within my first year of collecting comic books. So I got it then. I'm not getting rid of it. And it's definitely going to be a book I got to keep. We have a 3-0 Amazing Spider-Man number 14. And this is the first appearance of Green Goblin. And he's on the cover. It's a classic Spider-Man cover. If you're a Spider-Man fan and you're interested in getting Spider-Man villains, this one's an expensive one, but it's definitely one you'd want to have one in your collection. This list, we've got Aquaman number 35 at a 7-0. This is the first appearance of Black Manta. I got this book just a few months ago. It wasn't that long, but I got a steal for this book, especially at that grade. Used to, before the Aquaman movie, this book was expensive. It was not that easy to obtain either. In fact, I got my Hulk 181 trading a copy of Aquaman 35 because at one point it was incredibly scarce. Next up, we've got our first yellow label in this series. And this is a big book. Anytime I've ever broke this book out, it definitely has people's attention. So here we have Journey into Mystery, 83 at a 1.8. This is the origin and first appearance of Thor. So with this book, I bought this book raw. And then I had the same friend that I mentioned earlier that got me the Tales to Astonish book. He gave me a phone call and was like, hey man, Chris Hemsworth is going to be at a convention up in, I believe it was Columbus we went to. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And then we talked about it for maybe a day. And he convinced me that it was going to be an opportunity of a lifetime, as he put it. This is actually going to be a top 3 book for me. It just out of personal bias. I've always been such a huge fan of this character. And the initials are my initials, so it was destined. But we've got Daredevil number 1 at a yellow label 3.5. This is the origin and first appearance of Daredevil and the first appearance of Carrie Page and Foggy Nelson. In hindsight, I really wish I would have taken the time to get this book pressed. It's been graded twice. I had it raw, I got it graded, it came back to 3.5, and then I got it signed and it came back 3.5 again. But this one is signed Daredevil by Charlie Cox, the actor that plays Daredevil on the Netflix series. I do want to talk about the CGC Signature series. So there are some collectors that do not like having their books signed by anybody. They feel that it defaces the value of the book, which I completely understand that. I can see why you would feel that way. So you already take that group and then you raise it a notch by the belief that some people absolutely cannot stand having an actor sign a comic book. Again, I get the belief behind that, but here is my notion with it. So with these comic book characters, we also have a ton of movies and TV shows, right? So say Thor, for example. You know, my son's going to grow up and he's going to watch these Marvel movies, and his mind is always going to associate Chris Hemsworth with the character of Thor. So as he gets older, whenever he happens to reflect or think on that character Thor, his mind's going to associate Chris Hemsworth with it. So I've got no problem having actors sign these comic books because longevity-wise, it's going to increase the value for future generations. That's my beliefs. You're more than welcome to argue with me. It's not going to change anything because they're my books, right? So next up, we have Avengers number 4. This is 0.5. I had this at PGX 1.5. PGX is horrible. Don't recommend them for anything. But it was a 1.5. It had brittle pages. So naturally, I got this, cracked it open, took it to New Orleans Comic Con with me, where Chris Evans was, and had Chris Evans sign it and got it graded. So Chris Evans signed it at the bottom on the shield and then wrote Cap. So we've got Cap. I think this book has been hot for about 2 months now due to WandaVision. So next on this list, we have X-Men number 4 at a 4.0. This one has been restored. It has a small amount of color touch. So going back to the whole actors and signing books thing, no actor has signed this, but this is signed by Stan Lee. And as soon as Elizabeth Olsen gets back to doing signings and stuff like that, I'm going to send this in and have her sign it too. This is the first appearance of Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Toad, and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. This is also noteworthy for being the second appearance of Magneto. This is one of the earliest books that I got when I started collecting. I remember paying, I think, $450 for this about 6 years ago. So at that point, it was about $100 a grade. Versus where we're at now with this book, this is about a $1,800 book. So did really good on that. Super excited. This is the last DC book that I have for this little collection. This is Batman 181. This is graded in a 2.5. This is the first appearance of Poison Ivy. So with this book in particular, if you have raw copies, you gotta open it up and check it out, because there's a centerfold poster of Batman and Robin. And you got to open it up, because if it's not in there, then it's considered incomplete. So to get a blue label, you got to make sure that that centerfold is attached in there. Another cool little side note is this came out of June 1966. So going back earlier in the video when we mentioned Ares, the same month that Ares came out for Marvel, Poison Ivy came out for DC. So just look. I've got Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Now, I've already shown books that are considered higher tier, more valuable than this book, but this is one of my favorite comic book covers of all time. I've often contemplated getting it tattooed, but I love this cover. This is a 5.5. Whenever I got it, and you can see on the case that this case is pretty much already destroyed. It was like that when I got it. It was not supposed to be that way, but I had gotten it off of one of our groups, and the case came to me shattered, and I just have not taken the time to get it reholdered. Outside of that, I'm definitely going to get this book at a 7.0 at some point. Next on this list is going to be another Spider-Man book. It's Amazing Spider-Man number 1. I never thought I was going to have an opportunity to get this book. It always seemed out of reach, and then I was able to get it just this last year. And I break down how I was able to obtain a little bit more in a different video, which I'll put the link in, but Amazing Spider-Man number 1 is a great key book to have. Book right here, it's Fantastic Four number 5. It's graded at a 1.8. Now this is another book that's signed, but it was like that when I got it. I didn't add these signatures or anything like that. And for the time, I felt like I was paying a little bit too much for it, but where we're at in the market now, I got it for a steal. So it's signed by Stan Lee and Joe Sinnott. I don't know how to say his last name. By all means, correct me on that. But it's either Sinnott or Sino. I'm not for sure. Either way, we've got the first appearance of Dr. Doom with a full-page ad for Incredible Hulk number 1. It came out in July of 1962. And it is by far one of my favorite books I have in my collection, especially for Silver Age collection. Number 1, hands down, without comparison. So before I get into it, I wanted to share the story of why this book in particular is so important to me. So the character to begin with is one of my favorite characters ever. I've got a giant tattoo of the character on my forearm. So with this book, it was a book that I was always looking for. So whenever I got more serious about collecting, I was always looking for it. And I was trying to wait until I could find a good deal. Well, eventually I came across a seller who had this book, and he was offering payment plans, which at that time, nobody really did that. No one offers payment plans on really big books. They want all their money right then and there, which, rightfully so. So me and him negotiated, and we set up a payment plan for 8 months. to where I was essentially paying the mortgage on this dude's house for 8 months. But we got everything worked out, and I told my dad about what book I was getting and everything like that. And first he told me I was stupid to ever want to pay that much money for a comic book, and that it was ridiculous. But a few months into it, he saw that I was actively trying to still get this book. So my dad actually ended up matching me payments on the book. So we would kind of check in every month and be like, hey, are you still doing this? Like, yes, sir, I am. It's like, okay, well, here's what you need. So my dad helped me out tremendously in getting this book. And actually, whenever I had this book paid off and received it, my dad ended up passing away 2 weeks later. So it's got tremendous sentimental value to me because of that. Incredible Hulk #1. It's restored, but I don't care. It's a 1.5. The edges have been trimmed. It still presents super well, and this book is very hard to find. So I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to say that I have this. One of your theory. And there you have it, guys. That's my top 20 Silver Age comic books that I have. If you happen to find this video first, I've got another video where I showcase my top Golden Age books. By all means, go check that out. I guess next up is we're gonna be doing Copper. Whenever I was getting all my books together for this video, I found that I had way more Copper books than I thought I did. So that should be a pretty good, interesting video roll. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be giving away that copy of Spider-Gwen #1, the Amazing Spider-Man #50 homage variant. So make sure you check that out because you're going to want to win that book. It's beautiful. Thank you guys for checking this out, and stay safe.